In 10th grade, I tried acid. I really liked that, so I decided that I was going to start selling that. I bought my first sheet of acid. I sold that. It was easy to flip, so I got really into that. While all that was going on, my relationship with my parents had kind of gone downhill. It was just really ugly. I mean, I hated it.
Gabe, it's hard to believe that we're sitting down. This is your 1-year anniversary today of coming to Heartlight.
Mm-hmm.
The first few months that you were here were just a little bit rocky. And one of our first interactions that you and I had,
Yeah.
I think you were in a pair of handcuffs because the sheriff had come and arrested you and put you outside of one of the cabins. And I mean, that was a mess. But tell me what was going on that led up to that. I mean, what was going on before you got to Heartlight? What was going on in your life?
So I was kind of like, I don't know, I guess you could say like model Christian to an extent, like, you know, like my parents' view, I guess. Probably up until like 8th grade. And I mean, I'll get in trouble at school for like talking and like doing stuff I wasn't supposed to. They would get calls, whatever. I always have something to say about that. And then I guess everything started to go like downhill from that perspective, probably once I started high school, because I went to a public high school. And we live like, it's not a bad area, but like it's like lesser affluence. There's a lot of apartments, there's like gang activity, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I was kind of like nervous about that going into 9th grade. But I met some kids who I like really got along with and really like formed some friendships with. And so I got into stealing in 9th grade. Got really into that. I kind of started smoking in 9th grade. In 10th grade, I tried acid. I really liked that. So I decided that I was going to start selling that because I wanted to get it out so that other people could kind of like enjoy it like I did. So the summer after 10th grade, kind of like the summer leading up to me coming here, I had 2 jobs. I worked at Whataburger and I worked at a movie theater. So I had money coming in. I bought my first sheet of acid. I sold that. It was easy to flip, so I got really into that. I sold a lot more. Me and my friend Julian, my coworker, we did a lot of acid together. We stole a lot. We drank a lot. Every day, I mean, we was together pretty much every day because we worked at the same place. So, I mean, while all that was going on, my relationship with my parents had kind of gone downhill, probably since like 7th, 8th grade. We started like arguing a lot. We would yell a lot. We would fight. And it was just super negative. Like, we didn't really talk. They didn't listen. They didn't want to hear what I had to say. They would get physical. So, I mean, it wasn't really a place that I liked to be. I would leave the house. They would call the police. It was just really ugly. I mean, I hated it. It was
From this
miserable.
model Christian kid to what you're explaining, that's a big difference between the two.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, when you look back on that now, what do you think about that time?
I don't know. I think a large part of it had to do with me kind of like gaining a sense of independence and starting to kind of like think and act for myself. Because, I mean, for a large portion of like my early life, I just kind of do what my parents said. I mean, like, we would argue and like get into disagreements, but for the most part, like, it was just what they wanted. Like, I kind of thought like them. And then probably when I got to around like 12, 13, 14, I kind of started to think a little bit different, kind of outside of what they had always told me. I started to think for myself more. And then that kind of just expanded and broadened as time progressed.
Wow. Okay, so when they said, hey, you're going to Heartlight.
I did not want to hear that. I got woken up. It was like 3 or 4 in the morning. I thought I was late for school. I like all the lights come on, and so I'm like, oh, I guess I'm late. Like, my mom's waking me up, and she's like, yo, you're going to a boarding school. And I was like, what? And then like the next thing I know, like, she's gone. I don't see her or my dad. There's 2 transporters in my room. So that wasn't fun. I hated that because I mean I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know where I was going. They're kind of talking to me about it in the car. I didn't want to hear any of that. I was pissed at them. Just pissed at the whole situation. I was just so angry. So I got here, kind of more of the same thing.
So you got here, but how long did it take for that anger to start subsiding? And at some point, I mean, there was a transition. When was that?
I probably stopped being like mad at my parents probably in like November. So probably after like 2 or 3 months, I was kind of able to like almost assume their perspective and kind of be like, okay, like, I mean, like, I get it. Like, the stuff I was doing, like, you didn't like because it was dangerous. Like, no parent would choose that for their kids. So, I mean, like, I can see why y'all wanted to like step in and intervene and get me help. I mean, I still wasn't a fan of it. Like, I still didn't like choose. I wouldn't have chosen it for myself. But I mean, like, I could kind of understand like okay, like they didn't know what to do, like they thought I was in trouble. So I would say I probably stopped getting angry at them probably around like November, and then it wasn't until probably like maybe like April or May that I kind of started to like want to like kind of go with the program, I guess, and kind of like had more of an appreciation for like what I felt like I could benefit from.
That's 9 months later.
Yeah, it was a while.
Isn't that crazy?
For sure.
Isn't that crazy? So you kind of fought it for a while.
I did, yeah. Well, I mean, there was a point where I kind of stopped fighting it, probably in like February or March, and I kind of just decided to kind of sit and kind of like stop kind of like pushing back. But I wouldn't say I was kind of moving forward until like probably April or May.
Yeah. So what switched? What made that happen? What brought that about? What?
For me, like, I guess I couldn't tell you like a defining like one moment. I guess I just kind of realized that like there was no point in me sitting here wasting my time if I can like benefit and take something away from this. Because I mean, like, my relationship with my parents has been improving since like probably like November or October maybe. But I mean, I felt like I hadn't really improved a great deal. I mean, like, I worked on like my communication with them and with other people, but I mean, I wouldn't say I noticed like a really like drastic improvement on myself until probably like May or maybe even June.
Yeah. So what do you think has been the biggest change in your life?
I don't know. Probably like the way that I kind of like see things and the way that I like interact with people. Because I mean, like, before, like, I got a lot, like, people would tell me this a lot, like, oh, like, you're disrespectful, you're rude, whatever. And like, a lot of the times I didn't mean it that way. So I think probably the way that like I kind of like communicate and interact has probably changed a lot for sure.
Wow. Are you scared about going home?
I'm nervous, yeah, for sure. I mean, part of me is afraid that like it's going to go back to how it was, not in regards to me, but just in the way that like my parents handle things. So I've only been home once, so I'm nervous about that because I'm kind of like cautious. I don't want to like get back into how it was before because I hated it.
Yeah, not many people are doing acid like you were doing and involved in stuff like that. And so, I mean, it is dangerous. And I go, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But you're going home for break here pretty quick, though, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, yeah.
It's going to be I think that will be a good sign about how you guys get along and hopefully show us some things.
Like a test, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think everybody needs that occasionally to help kind of show what's needed and what needs to be worked on still. And I think you guys are capable of that. Because I think we ought to be talking now about when are you going to be going home? When are you going to be? It's time. I mean, you don't need to spend the rest of your life in a little boys' home in East Texas. I mean, it's time to go home. And so that's what we're going to be working on. Well, thanks for coming in and talking about your life. I mean, to me, it's amazing to me the transition that I've seen, even though it's taken longer. It's fun to hear you talk about those things. And even when I hear you talking to other kids and stuff, you've realized a lot of stuff. And I don't know if you really realize how profound that is, that you've come to some pretty good conclusions about life that most people don't come to until they're in their later years of college or something. And so my prayer for you is that just continues to grow and grow and grow in you and see what happens.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Thank
cool.
you.
Well, man, thanks for coming in and sharing with us, okay?
Yeah, no problem.
You bet.
All right.